We're live. The
We're
Mansion
live.
Show.
We're in the mansion. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I feel terrific. I've been really feeling dialed with our rankings, our rookie rankings. Today, for the first time, I was looking through them and I was like, all right, these are as good as it's going to get.
Yeah.
Because we were running all the assumptions and all the modeling with Dario and you, and just getting everything just perfect, and making sure that everybody's been thought through, like, hey, projected draft capital and where could this guy potentially land and all these things. So you got to get all the factors in place so that the machine can give you lifetime value ratings for rookies. It's not easy. It's really not easy to generate lifetime value ratings for rookies. Requires a lot of assumptions. And so that's why we don't have them ready like Monday morning. But now it's Wednesday, and they are very much ready. So we'll talk about the rookie rankings a lot today. And you just returned from Indy, from the Combine. So that's what I want to talk about first. Just what is it like to go? Like when you go to the Combine, take us there with you. Did your mic go out? Does his mic work?
It was on mute. The answer is, when growing up, you always looked at the combine. It was like, oh, these prospects are all going to the combine. They're going to run their 40-yard dash, and that's what it is. But then as you grow into the process and see the things behind the scenes, and you see the medicals and all the other testing that they're doing, you learn these things. And when you go there, I had no clue that they had interviews and all this stuff until I talked to Alex, and he's like, yeah, man, they got interviews every single day of the week. Boots on the ground is not what you expect. You don't expect, like, oh, we're going to go watch the 40-yard dash. Last year, we actually didn't get to go in the stadium at all. The only reason we got to go in the stadium is because of the FSWA, Fantasy Sports Writers Association. We got to go in there for an hour and watch the wide receivers and quarterbacks work out on like Friday night. An hour, period. The whole week we got to go in the stadium for 1 hour. The rest of the week was convention center and everything else outside of the stadium. And then everything inside the stadium, we had to go back and watch it on TV. We're sitting in the convention center in the media room. But this year was the first year that they actually allowed us in the stadium for all the workouts. And so that was obviously what everybody sees. What you don't see is 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, when there's GMs, head coaches, and over 300 prospects lining up to do interviews on these podiums, and it's just one after another. They have all these different groupings of players in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And you have to some people will stand there at one guy and listen to Bijan talk the entire time. I try to get a feel for every single play that's in the building. That's my goal. And some people look at it as a positive. Some people look at it as a negative because you only listen to like a minute or two of each guy.
Okay, that's what you have to do. You have to rotate through.
Yeah, I try to listen to like a minute and a half, 2 minutes max of each guy and get a feel. And if I really love a dude, I'll sit there for maybe 3 minutes, but even that kind of throws off your whole cycle of trying to get through everybody, because these sections, it's really weird. So like the skill position guys, quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, you get 15 minutes per group. Each group has an average of 8 or 9 guys in it. You got to be moving. The lineman group gets 30 minutes. It's like the exact opposite of what it should be, right? Who really wants to sit there and talk to an offensive lineman and stuff like that? But yeah, so that's,
man. Come on.
I'm just being truthful. But that's kind of the rotation, how it goes. And a lot of people don't know that. You're literally in a convention center from 8 a.m. until 4 to 6 p.m. doing that. Then we go back. We had a loft this year. Last year we had an Airbnb house that was a half-mile walk from the convention center, and it's chilly in Indianapolis. This year we just took Skyways all the way back to our Airbnb and did a stream afterwards on 3 days, go out and get dinner, run into a few people, John Daigle, Dalton Cates, Ryan McDowell,
Oh,
XYZ.
Ryan McDowell's there. That's cool.
A lot of guys from the community, a lot of NFL guys, things like that. And you run into those guys, and all of a sudden you're out midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, just talking football, learning things, and you never know who you're going to run into. So that's just kind of the feel of Indianapolis during Combine Week.
What about football guys? What about NFL team representatives?
Yeah, there's definitely those everywhere. Every bar you go into, somebody's there. We walked into a bar just to meet Daigle and Dalton and Chris Allen and Sam Hoppin, and we walk in. sit next to him. He goes, I think that guy next to you, I think he's a free agent for the Saints. Deontay Hardy's just sitting at the bar. I was like, okay. Walking down the street, going to another place to go have a cigar at Burn in Indianapolis. I think it's the best place in Indianapolis. Von Miller walking right past you on the sidewalk.
Hey, Vaughn.
Hey, what's up, Vaughn? I was like, okay. Walk into this place. Jack Del Rio, Kevin Stefanski, 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, what? Okay. Stephen Jones. Okay, what? And it's just weird because it's like,
what's Stephen Jones like?
I didn't listen to him talk. I just walked past him, but it's just one of those. It was like, why are you here right now? And the Cowboys roll up. Nobody else rolls up like the Cowboys. The Cowboys got this 48-foot coach bus with a big star on the side. They just pull up in front of a bar and they get out and go in, and it's kind of comical. But
is it weird that I think Stephen Jones is creepier than Jerry Jones?
It's hard to do too. That's a hard.
Did he look creepy?
To be. Not as no Jerry. I mean Jerry's. He's up there in the creep rating, right?
I don't know. I mean, these families, man, once they get to a certain level, they just become creep machines. I think that's really what happens. I think that's it. So last year, famously, you got on SportsCenter because you asked Kenny Pickett if his hand size is going to be an issue, which was hilarious. Yeah. And then they ran it. It's like, hey, the small hands question. Did you have any of those moments with these conversations, asking questions of athletes?
Somebody had to do it, right? I think the biggest takeaway question was, it went pretty good on Twitter, was the one about Kayshon Boutte. And I asked him, well, I didn't ask him this question.
So it's not Boutte anime anymore, it's Boutte.
Boutte.
Okay.
Booty cheeks.
Wow, that's cool. I'd rather say that. I'd rather say booty.
Booty. Love the booty. Love the booty. Love booty at value. Love booty in every way. I didn't ask him this, but I recorded and I tweeted it. He's like, I'm gonna run a 4. He said, how fast you can run? He goes 4.3. Who's your best comparable player? Stephon Diggs. And then he famously goes out and runs a 4.5, 4.6. And that one got a little bit of heat on Twitter, but I didn't ask a ton of questions last year, and I kind of took it like as growth, right? Last year I went in and my goal was to ask all the questions. I wanted to ask Kenny the question. I asked Bijan because everyone wants to talk to Bijan about Bijan, right? But Bijan and Roschon are very close on the field and off the field. And I knew that just talking to Alex. And he's like, man, Bijan, like he's Roschon's number one fan. And so we're sitting there the night before, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to ask Bijan? I'm going to say, hey, Bijan, because there's 100 people standing here watching. I said, hey, Bijan, who is Roschon Johnson? I said, none of these people know who Roschon Johnson is. Who's Roschon Johnson? And he went off for like 2.5 minutes talking about how important Roschon is and what Roschon means to the Texas and the community and the backfield and his abilities. He said, I think he's the next great running back in this class. And he just went off, of course, like you'd expect. But that was probably my favorite question that I did ask was to Roschon.
Did you tell Bijan that he can get Roschon Johnson in some rookie drafts in the 3rd round?
I should have.
It's embarrassing. You should. Well, let me tell you something, Bijan. Yes, you're the 101, but the community's got Roschon all wrong. And I thought that it was such a hype bubble that blew out after the Senior Bowl. That hype bubble just expanding around Mobile. I thought, hey, this Roschon's now in the conversation for 1st-round picks, at least 2nd round. Then Alan and Theo are telling me, no, it's still possible 3rd-round pick. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What? Not possible, but yet possible. So very, very. I'm glad you asked that question. Anything we stand for Roschon Johnson. That's what we do. We have our guys. That's one of our guys. We have a few guys. That's one of our guys, and we'll get to some more of our guys in a little bit. Anyone else you talked to that you found interesting? Player, coach, anything?
I mean, yeah, a couple of the coaches were interesting, but I honestly just listening to all of these guys' process and who the hell was this one? Leonard Taylor. Leonard Taylor was a tight end. Nobody knows who the hell Leonard Taylor is. He played tight end for Cincinnati, plays with Josh Wiley at Cincinnati, who's the better known tight end prospect coming out of Cincinnati. This guy has like 4 degrees. He's got a major in something I can't say. He's got 2 minors, one in coaching. He's got a coaching certificate, and he's got a real
secret
estate
major.
I don't know what it is, and he's got a real estate license. And
Okay.
this guy is 6'6", 230, not a terrible athlete, and he is there 100% mentally. And when you ask a guy like, what do you want to do? And he says, I want to be the Walter Payton Man of the Year. And that's his response. You're instantly like, all right, I'm there. I'm in. I don't care if you're bad at football. Like, you're at least there mentally where you're going to go in and your goal is to win a Super Bowl and to win the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Like, not everybody's wired that way. Not everybody's wired to have 4 degrees coming out of Cincinnati and want to win the wall. You know what I'm saying? Like, and play football at the same time. That was probably the most interesting guy that I talked to all week was Leonard Taylor.
Tight end too. Tight ends can have a long career if they just work hard.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's all it really with tight end. It's a brutal position. It requires incredible strength, endurance. These are things that you need mental toughness to get. Certainly there's going to be a George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski level athletes that are going to be the superstars, but guys that can have roles for Super Bowl teams, win rings, make a whole bunch of money, playing a sport, being wired that way is important, incredibly important. So in the whispers that you were hearing around Indianapolis and talking to Alex and hearing what someone was saying about someone and what someone heard someone say about someone, what impression did you get about which player is furthest apart between NFL evaluators, NFL teams, and the fantasy analysts and the rookie mocks where these guys are getting drafted? Which guy you think these worlds are furthest apart on?
First off, am I freezing right now?
You've been freezing now and again.
God damn it.
I don't know what's going on with your video.
All right. I'll just answer the question. Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt's the guy. We went in there and talked to multiple people, and yes, the expectation was that he was going to run in the 4.2s, and he runs 4.40. But Jalen Hyatt is a guy that you talk to all these NFL teams, Hyatt is up on that list. He's up at 1, he's up at 2, whereas the fantasy community is obviously not as high on it because he's kind of a one-trick pony. But when you're talking about the NFL aspect of things and you look at the last years of what has happened with the Henry Ruggses, the Jameson Williamses, and how they've always valued speed, it makes sense the Hyatt would be up there with the expectation and with the fact that he did run a 4.40, which isn't 4.2, but he's got 22 plus miles per hour on on that 40-yard dash. So NFL teams take that into account as well, and I think Hyatt is going to end up being a guy that does probably end up in the top 25 in the NFL draft, whereas like right now, the consensus expectation from the media is that he's probably an early second, late first, and in fantasy, nobody's talking about him because it's Quentin is the big alpha. Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Jackson, and Josh Downs are much better possession receivers and much better route runners, but Hyatt is a guy at receiver that's definitely being overlooked from the fantasy community.
We don't have him ranked that high. Why don't we have him ranked higher?
Because he's not that good. He's not that good at football. He's good at a couple aspects of football, which only correlate really to the NFL and to DFS. Like, he's going to be a guy that, yes, he'll pop off occasionally for the 3, 130, and 2, which is exactly why I loved Quez Watkins, right? That's why I preferred Quez Watkins over Henry Ruggs in that draft. And it's like guys like this, you can find multiple of them. Like there's going to be multiple in every draft. Why would you ever spend that capital on a guy in the first round that you could probably get one in the 5th round? Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer is a guy that ran 4.33. We know has the speed. We know has the abilities downfield. Andre Yasovich, another guy that's super fast later in the draft. Bryce Ford Wheaton, the super athlete with the size, can run a little bit better routes than Jalen Hyatt. Like, why would you spend the capital on a guy that you have? You know he can do one thing. And this is like, we're talking to one guy and he's like, Hyatt's my number 1. And we're like, why? And he's like, he might be a one-trick pony, but that one trick, it changes the entire dynamic of an offense.
No, it's not. It's not a trick though. If at 4.4, at 4.25, it's a trick.
Yes.
At 4.25, it's absolutely a trick. At 4.4, it's not a trick. At 4.4, that's D.D. Westbrook.
It's a hoax.
It's just D.D. Westbrook. That's all it is. But I mean, because he did have 1,200 plus yards, he did have 15 touchdowns. He had a very D.D. Westbrook Oklahoma season at Tennessee. Yep. I understand where the hype comes from. He is young. Like I get it. And the burst score too. Look at the explosion. 97th percentile burst score.
Yeah, nothing wrong with it.
That combines the vertical jump and the broad jump into one metric. If he goes and shreds the agility drills at the Tennessee Pro Day, oh baby.
But why last year when Cedric Tillman was healthy? Cedric Tillman's the other wide receiver in this offense. And coming out of the 2021 season, going into 2022, Cedric Tillman was the number one wide receiver on the Senior Bowl watch list. He had 1,000 yards last year in his year 4 junior season. Then he was banged up. He didn't really play a full season this year. And then Hyatt takes over. Like, that's another thing where, like, right now, I think if you ask a lot of evaluators, right now they would say Hyatt because of the speed and what he did because he showed it to us. But the 2 prior seasons, Hyatt wasn't doing that. It was Tillman. It was Tillman's offense. It was Velus Jones's offense. Like, Hyatt had 200 yards each of the last 2 seasons. So, I don't know, man. Did he find that next gear? Did he have a great connection with Hendon Hooker? Sure. But when I'm talking about the NFL, especially when you're talking about fantasy, like, why don't we have him higher? Because he's not a good route runner. He's point blank. He's not. He did not look good on Saturday night running the routes. When we graded through everything, he did not test very highly or score very highly, I should say, especially as high as like some of these other guys that actually disappointed in the testing, but then on the on-field, they looked very well, very good. But yeah.
You scored all the routes?
Correct.
So you watched all the routes and you scored all the wide receivers with their route running. I mean, that's a unique opportunity. That's one of the reasons to go to the combine right there, is to have all these guys there running routes instead of having to pour over film that may be inconclusive because there's a guy's getting jammed to the line of scrimmage by a top corner, or he's getting all this cushion. Like, these guys are performing and testing in controlled environments, one single controlled environment, and that would allow you to compare and contrast in a much more logical way, as opposed to trying to say, okay, I watched this guy against these teams, and yeah, the secondaries are better in this conference, but I was, looking at his route running, and it was on turf versus grass.
Yeah.
When you're trying to piece together across all these players and all these games that are happening in college football, it's not apples to apples. This is actually a controlled environment with an apples to apples comparison.
I like that you say that, because when I had thought about it before, first off, I didn't just make this scoring system up. I got to shout out Alex Dunlap, because this is something that he had been doing for the last 10 years. Didn't do it last year. He kind of talked me through the process, and then I just built the spreadsheet, and I was like, I'm just going to do this. You talk me through it, I'm going to do it. So that's why I did it. And now that you're talking about it to me, I'm understanding, and I'm realizing, like, I should be weighting this more than I am already. Because I'm waiting. I'm like, oh yeah, these guys, comparing them all. But when you think exactly what you just said, is that it's a controlled situation. And yes, the quarterbacks do differ. Every 4 passes, the quarterback changes. So, but everybody moves through. So if Jalen Hyatt had Will Levis as his first throw, he's going to have Jake Haener as his second throw, and Aiden O'Connell as his third throw. But you can take notes doing this. So I did. So if I put drop, bad pass, things like this, the cool thing about the combine is that, yeah, they'll go through all 46 guys. But if guy 32 and 40 and 46 all had a shit pass that was uncatchable and it kind of ruined their rep, they go right back and they give them a better quarterback, and you get to see it again. So it's like hyper controlled, where you really get, I guess you can have a bad day, somebody can have a great day, but you really get, like, it's the best possible spot to evaluate every single wide receiver from an on-field route running perspective, and just saying, like, all right, well, this guy rounds every single rep that he takes. This guy does not know how to break off. This guy does not, X, Y, and Z. And that's where like Hyatt comes in 32nd out of 45 guys in grading.
Wow. And the best route runner last year was Chris Olave.
Yep. Oh yeah. Not even close.
Not even close. Makes it an easy eval.
That's why the conversation was like going into the combine. Me and Alex last year were like, dude, is it Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson? And we both left Chris Olave, but then we continued that conversation all the way through. And the one thing that kept us on Chris Olave was that we know what we know with him, and he's the best route runner in the class, and it's not even a question. So you know what you're going to get year one. Garrett Wilson had a little more flux in his eval. So yeah, he won Rookie of the Year, but there was also a world where maybe he only plays 9 games because he's a little erratic. But Olave, you just knew what you were getting.
All right, so we have 5 burning takeaways. I have 5 burning questions in another show, and now we're going to have 5 burning takeaways from the scouting combine. Takeaways about particular position groups that will affect your next mock, because you published your mock draft 3.0. So we're going to talk about the draft overall, not just for fantasy. 5 burning takeaways coming up next. Let me bring you in. I'm going to bring you in proper now. Let's see if we can get the Bulls intro.
By the way, Mock 4.0 did drop an hour ago.
Did it? I can hear the excitement building in the arena for your Mock 4.0. I think it's absolutely happening. I'm not sure exactly how the boots on the ground, man. I feel like it's the boots on the ground is really the ultimate boots on the ground. I think that's got to be how we bring you in. Big boots, big shoes. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program. The boots on the ground. At the Super Bowl, the Senior Bowl, the Combine. This guy's watching every route the receivers run. He's our eyes, he's our ears. It is Cody Carpentier. Talk to me.
How the hell are we doing, man? I mean, I'm sleep deprived. You're sleep deprived. It's rookie season. It's draft season. We're here. Let's talk some freaking football.
I am tired, man, but it doesn't matter. I don't feel tired. As soon as I sit down in front of this microphone, this camera, and I see the people flowing into the chat. I see Harry Snowman is in there. You know Harry Snowman.
Every time.
He now has my email address because I linked him up with Jack, because Jack was like, hey, yeah, I'd love to have Harry Snowman on the show. I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And then so I got this guy's email. I was like, hey, you should go on Jack's show. You're, heavily involved in the chat. I'm sure it'd be great to have the audience actually see you as a guest. So he's like, oh, I'm in. I'm there. Great. Show was a little long. I told Jack, hey, listen, next time Harry Snowman comes on, why don't you wrap that up a little earlier, And then now every day I wake up and there's an email from Harry Snowman. Hey, why aren't you guys higher on Jalen Hyatt? Like, why, just hammering me. This dude's now hammering my inbox every day with what we need to be doing, questions about why we're not doing certain things. And I'm like, Jack, we opened a Pandora's box here, but I think it's worth it. We love the Snowman. He's very active. Keep it up. Keep it up in there. And you never know. You could be the next Snowman. Anyone in the chat on YouTube could be the next Snowman and get to join Jack Kavanaugh on Player Profiler today.
Shout out to everybody in the chat also on YouTube. If you're not on YouTube, shout out to you if you are over there. We appreciate you guys every single show.
Oh, baby. Yeah. Oh, Jojo Sanchez. Bang. So here we go. The 5 burning takeaways about these position groups where you're like, oh, wow, okay, well, that guy is now in the first round, or that guy's now getting drafted on day 2, or I'm so glad I get to see this guy. My mock will be affected by what I just saw.
Yeah. Let's start at the top. Number 1 is these 4 quarterbacks will all go in the top 10. That's That's hands down. That's the biggest thing that I guess, the more broad view, everybody knows that now. Because there was conversations of like, oh, some people in our space don't like Will Levis. They're like, he's not going to be in the top 10. Anthony Richardson, oh, he's a super project. He's going to be in the teens. He might fall into the 20s. He might go to Washington, whatever. All four of these guys are going top 10, if not top 5, top 6. And you can pretty much write that one in ink right there. And you can thank that to Anthony Richardson, running like a super freak, jumping like a super freak. Bryce Young came in at the weight that the NFL wanted to see. Not that it means anything, because, as soon as he pissed all that water out, he was 196. CJ Stroud, he had somebody to compete with him. This is my biggest takeaway from the event at the quarterback position was CJ Stroud had somebody to push him. I haven't seen CJ Stroud be pushed in college. He's always had the weapons out there for him. I've always thought he's got pinpoint precision. He can get the ball everywhere he needs to go, but I never thought he had the strength, the arm strength to push the ball to where he needed to push it at the NFL and be able to get the ball there in time in the NFL. And he proved at the combine that he could do that. And then we take away what we learned in that Georgia game was that he can move on the ground. Maybe not at the elite level, but he can at least do it. And we've seen what that does for guys like Stafford and Kirk Cousins, where they can at least do it. They can, give you 20, 25, 30 yards in a game. All four of these quarterbacks looked good. The one thing I will say at the quarterback position is, I tweeted this out. If you think Will Levis is bad, you got 4 crossed eyes and an asshole for a nose. Will Levis had the early group at quarterback, and he looked fantastic. And just because he was throwing the ball against Stetson Bennett and Aiden O'Connell and Jake Haener, and those guys are all donkeys, you can't push that against Will Levis that he wasn't in the same group as CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, because evaluators talk to him after the throwing still have Will Levis ahead of Anthony Richardson.
Oh, really?
Yes.
But it doesn't matter for fantasy. We have Anthony Richardson as the locked-in player number 2.
Yep.
The 102 in Superflex. Write that down. And then CJ Stroud. Like the big 3 is easy now. It's so easy. It became so easy. Everything became a lot of uncertainty about these quarterbacks. But then I got locked in. Bijan, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud. Now the top 8 is 50% quarterback in Superflex rookie drafts. I like it that way. I prefer these kinds of classes where the quarterbacks are strong, where you get multiple quarterbacks, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 in the top 10. I prefer those types of drafts personally. Yeah. How did Anthony Richardson look in the throwing drills when you measuring his accuracy?
Fine. He looked fine. He obviously wasn't on CJ Stroud's level, but he made the outer throws are always the toughest, right? The balls that are to the far side of the field, those are tough balls to get to, especially when you're not a naturally accurate quarterback. But I think with a guy like Richardson, when you think of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL right now, they're not all they're not all the biggest, they're not all the strongest. Oftentimes, they're the smaller, the Kirk Cousinses of the world, the Drew Brees of the world, the Geno Smiths of the world are the ones throwing for 70%. What do all those guys have in common? They're not big, jacked up dudes. They're just they got the arm motion down. They don't have an abundance of muscle. Knocking whatever the hell the word is, deterring their throw from getting to where it needs to be. CJ Stroud fits right into that mold. But Richardson, he can make all the throws. Yes, he's going to miss the occasional throw. Yes, he's never probably going to eclipse 65%. But he proved that he could make all the throws. Yes, will you need to have a 90th percentile catch radius to catch some of them on the outside? Sure. But he proved that he could do it.
Stroud's arm strength was a question going in. I believe that he addressed those concerns and that his arm strength is at least league average. And if it's league average, he's locked into a top 5 pick in the draft.
I'd say above average. I came in thinking
above
he was average. Yeah, I came in thinking he was average. I came in with the expectation of, Teddy Bridgewater, Goff.
Well, no, Teddy Bridgewater's arm strength is below average. I just wanted to see average. If you're that accurate with average arm strength, then we're in business here. If it's above average,
no, I think you're talking like Carr's got a good arm. I think Carr and Stroud's arms aren't far apart. Cousins is probably right at average. I think he's got a better arm than Cousins.
Wow, that's incredible. Okay, give us another takeaway about a position group that affected your mocks.
That was the number one takeaway, and that's why the quarterbacks you can see are all in the top 5 right now for my mock draft 4.0 that just dropped on Player Profiler. You can go to the brand new NFL draft section. It's right there at the top. Mock draft 4.0. Go check it out right now. The other one is Edge.
Did you turned it around so fast?
Hey, man, it takes a minute, but I got it done. Edge. The edge position. When you look at this class at the edge position, yes, quarterback gets a lot of the conversation, but edge, Will Anderson obviously being up there. A lot of the conversation coming in was Tyree Wilson. He didn't test, but he's got the 900-inch arm length, so that's a wingspan. So that's a big deal, right? So everyone chases the wingspan, everyone chases the size. Tyree Wilson actually comes down in this mock draft this time around because we asked multiple offensive linemen while we were out there, who was the most difficult player to play against this year? And you didn't give them multiple choice. You didn't give them anything. It was always Felix Uzama from Kansas State. All these Big 12 guys said that. Not one person said Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. So Tyree comes down because when you talk to these guys and you say, well, why is Tyree Wilson up here? Why is Tyree Wilson in the top 5? They go, Tyree Wilson's in the top 5 for mock drafts? Yeah, everyone thinks Tyree Wilson's going to be a top 5 guy. And a lot of the real evaluators, the real guys that grade through and look at all the prospects and things like this, they're like, that doesn't make a lot of sense, man. He had 7 sacks back-to-back years. What are we doing with Tyree Wilson? So Miles Murphy didn't work out, things like that. Lucas Van Ness never started a game at Iowa, worked out like a menace. So when you look at this mock, you're going to see edge at pick 8, pick 9, pick 10, because these guys all belong in that area. They don't belong up above these quarterbacks where they would in prior years because they just aren't as proficient of prospects like a Will Anderson is.
Interesting. Okay. So good. Okay. Great. I didn't know the quarterbacks were going to be this good, right?
Yeah.
We didn't know that Bryce Young would weigh in so heavy. Didn't know that CJ Stroud's arm strength would be this good. We didn't know that Anthony Richardson would be this refined and this athletic, all in one, exquisite package. And so that necessarily has to displace a position group, and it sounds like it's displacing the edge group. Give us another big takeaway.
Wide receiver. Obviously, Jordan Addison disappointed in his workouts. Quentin Johnston jumped out of the building, didn't run. We'll see what happens with that at the pro day coming up. Zay Flowers, he gained 13 pounds. He cemented himself, I think, as a first-round pick. A lot of the conversations around Indianapolis have him up in that top 4 as well, as expected.
Wait. Between the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl and the Combine, he gained 13 pounds?
13 pounds.
How?
170 to 183.
And he didn't look sluggish?
No. He's him. I tweeted this out. I said he's Himothy.com, which is what Antonio Brown always called himself. Himothy, I'm him. Like that's what Zay is him. Zay's got the best mentality out of all these wide receivers on the top end. I think he locked himself in the top 25, so you're going to see him in there at number 21. I kept Addison in there.
Zay Flowers at 21 on your latest mock.
Yeah, to the Chargers. So the thing is, like Addison, though, Jordan Addison, you see him, I have him up at 17, coming off as the wide receiver 1. He had a bad workout, man. He's tiny, man. Yeah, you're right. But the NFL loves Jordan Addison. They love them some Jordan Addison.
I was talking to Theo on the Sonic Truth podcast, latest episode of the Sonic Truth podcast, the debut of the new lineup, season 6, right? First episode, season 6. Dropped on the podcast feed today, debuted on YouTube yesterday, and Theo is like, listen, Jordan Addison was just too light and too slow for me not to move him down. And I was like, we touched him down the slightest bit because we were hoping for a little more size, a little more speed, but you move him down much, you're making a mistake. Because he's going to get the draft capital, and you're going to set yourself up to be disappointed and to be behind the crowd, as we were once upon a time on Devontae Smith for the similar reasons. The thing is, Devontae Smith didn't test at all, didn't even let himself be measured. And our systems had no way to measure anything about this guy's physique, athleticism. And so we just couldn't justify moving him up higher. At least with Jordan Addison, the guy is showing up, and he does run a sub 4.5 barely.
Yep.
Right? Barely. And the NFL community, the scouts love him, and you have him actually posted up ahead of Jackson Smith and Jigba in your latest mock.
Correct.
What?
And I want to say one thing at the wide receiver. You just talked about the 40-yard dash thing, and we had multiple conversations about the 40-yard dash specifically because I don't know if you watched on TV or not, but when they were running the 40s all weekend, or all week, I should say, you could watch on the screen, and it's always legs. It always lags behind on the screen when they start that clock and they end that clock, and then the officials come in. It's always just a bunch of you never know what the truth is, right? So the Tank Dell number came in at like 4.5 or 4.48 or something high like this, and then the official was like 4.49 for Tank Dell. And we're talking about this at one of the restaurants down there, and this NFL evaluator was like, "What are you talking about? He didn't run that slow." He was like, "No, he did. I think he ran 4.49 unofficial on the screen." He pulls up his phone. He scrolls through. He's like, "We have him at 4.43. What are you talking about?" I said, "But that's not official. That's not NFL official." He goes, "That's what we have in our system." He goes, "All of our numbers come from the stopwatch, all of them." And of course that makes sense.
Team?
NFL team, yeah. And of
just
course that makes
timing everything. Why even go to the combine then?
Right. Obviously, my interviews and medicals and stuff like that. But
it
was just very interesting. No, I know, but it was just very interesting because, right, yeah. But it was interesting because you wouldn't think of that off the top. But then when he says that, you're like, oh, that makes sense because they're going to go to these pro days and they're going to gather another 100 wide receivers data from a stopwatch. So if you have all this official numbers and you know you're going to be 5/10 off, why not just have all your numbers in your database be hand timed? I didn't think about that until he said that, and I was like, that makes sense. But it's a facade then. Why are we having official times? Why not just everyone hand time, right?
For television.
I don't know. Exactly. So that was a big takeaway. Was at the wide receiver position. I have two other ones.
Well, what is your takeaway? Your takeaway is that Zay Flowers is the clear wide receiver 4.
Jordan Addison stays number 1.
You can't be moving Jordan Addison down too much. The NFL loves the hell out of him.
It's like Jahan Dotson last year. Jahan Dotson was just like, look at him. But then he ends up being, 16th overall? Like, it's just a guy like that. He's going to be drafted high because the NFL loves that archetype and loved what he did in college, period.
Why doesn't the NFL like the Jackson Smith and Jigba archetype? He's 6'2", 200, and he's one of the most agile wide receivers we've ever seen. When you size adjust it, the guy's ridiculous.
Because you have to take into account the fact that nobody really has a clue at this point what happened in the last 9 months.
That's really what's going to hold. That didn't hold Jamar Chase back. He was a top 5 pick.
Yeah, but he wasn't like banged up. I think he just opted out, if I remember right. I don't remember him like tearing his ACL or having a hamstring injury or anything like that and like trying to force. He was just like, I'm done. I'm opting out. And he trained the whole time. Like, and yeah, I mean,
sharing a field with Chris Olave, sharing a field with Garrett Wilson. The guy commands over 100 targets, 1,600 plus yards, 85% catch rate. And he did a little bit on special teams. And we're not falling over ourselves to get this guy, especially knowing how valuable the wide receiver position is, especially with Christian Kirk commanding $80+ million and then ramping up to overpay Jacoby Myers this year. And they're not going to vault Jackson Smith and Jigba. There's a possibility of someone drafting him after Jordan Addison.
What if I told you he had an 89% slot rate? If you were an NFL evaluator and you were an NFL team, would that mean shit to you? Or would you say, well, Justin Jefferson had a 60% slot rate, so we think he can probably translate?
An NFL team might think that this is a one-dimensional slot receiver incorrectly.
Correct.
That's what's happening. But the guy that's 175 running a 4.5 is fine. It's the NFL, man. Every year they do weird stuff, like with the Bryce Young thing, right? Bryce Young is not a top 2 quarterback in this class, certainly not for fantasy purposes, but even if I were an NFL team, I wouldn't be drafting him among the top 2 quarterbacks. But you can't impose rational thinking and the level of analytical thinking that we impose on our process on NFL teams. Okay, Give us another burning hot takeaway that affected your mocks.
Kalijah Kancey is a defensive tackle from Pittsburgh. Kalijah Kancey is getting all these comparisons to Aaron Donald. Rightfully so. He went to Pittsburgh. He's 6 foot tall, 285 pounds, pretty strong, pretty athletic. He's been getting mocked up into the teens, and I fell for it too, right? I didn't love what I saw on tape, but I read mocks, I pay attention to things, and what it sounded like everybody was going towards was this guy, NFL teams love him. But then you go to Indianapolis and you talk to multiple people, and they're like, I mean, I don't love him as much as Adatomwe. Adatomwe from Northwestern, Adatomwe Adedebore from Northwestern.
Ooh.
Dog. He demolished the Senior Bowl, and nobody was talking about him. Had him on the All-Senior Bowl team. Me and Alex loved him. Multiple sources, inside organizations, prefer Adatomwe Adedebore from Northwestern over Kalijah Kancey from Pittsburgh. Take that.
Well, Northwestern, man. Northwestern's getting more and more elite players in the NFL. Good for Northwestern, man. Love to see it.
It's very telling. It's actually interesting because they go, well, he's undersized. Okay. Well, Adebore's 6'2", 282, almost 34-inch arms, and he ran a 4.49.
What?
They got him listed as edge, right? He's 6'2", 282. This guy can play all the way out to 5. He can play 6'I", but he can also play all the way into 1. Is he a little undersized to play 1? Yes. But Kalijah Kancey is 6'1", 281 with 30.5-inch arms. Adebore's got longer arms. He's an inch taller, and he's the same weight, and he ran 0.2 of a second faster. What are we doing here? Like, this is the thing, is like, yes, Kalijah's good. He's a second-round pick. But Adebore needs to be talked about in round 1. Not a lot of people
these
are
are the
doing
mock
it right
drafters you're talking about. These are mock
Correct.
drafters that are
Correct.
just connecting dots.
Correct.
And they're working on nonsense narratives. And that's why our mocks are better and your mocks are so accurate year over year, because you're actually going to the Senior Bowl, you're going to the Combine, you're talking to scouts, and you're focusing on details that the guy behind the computer at the Bleacher Report just can't fully understand or appreciate.
That's the big takeaway is, and I fell for it. I fell for it before, was putting Kancey all the way up into the teens, and it was like, well, I'm just doing what I'm reading right now, and then I get boots on the ground and I hear that that's not the truth, and you have to adjust, and that's the adjustment is the athlete's the better player. The better player is the better player.
That's so shocking. That's surprising. What about who would shock us at the quarterback position getting drafted earlier than anyone expected? Like, who's the QB5 in the draft?
Well, the QB5 is Hendon Hooker from Tennessee. He's coming off that ACL tear. There is a world where I think
but there's no one that has a chance to surpass him and supplant him as the 5th drafted quarterback?
No, I'd say no. So
okay.
I think I think we'll move down past him in a second, but I think that there is a world where you see Hooker potentially get into the late part of the first round.
Oh,
just because the team wants that wants that piece, wants that insurance on him.
Okay.
Seattle sitting at 37. I think that's an interesting team where they're sitting at 20 and 37. They could move down from 20, or they could move up from 37, and that would be the perfect thing, because there is an out with the Geno contract to where you bring a Hendon Hooker in, and Geno's there for 1 year, and Hooker molds behind Geno. 2024, it's Hendon Hooker season in Seattle. The next quarterback, though, that I do.
Whoa. What about the possibility of Seattle drafting Anthony Richardson in the top 10?
I don't see that happening. I think that they understand they have Geno on a great contract that's looking better and better by the day with these other contracts coming out, and they know Geno's fine. They could probably just roll with Geno, kind of similar to what the Vikings have done. Is he going to win them a Super Bowl? Probably not. More than likely not. But he's going to be good enough to keep them afloat, keep that team competent, and continue to build. And they have enough picks, thanks to Russell Wilson, that they can sitting right now at 5. They can move down to 9, let somebody else jump up, take that quarterback. And you know what? If it does blow apart this year, they still are going to have more picks and more picks for next year. Then you move up and get the real good quarterback, Caleb Williams or Drake May. So I think the Seattle thing, I don't think that Seattle's going to actually be in this quarterback conversation. Whereas a year ago, I thought they were, but that was because we didn't know what Geno was. But
Right.
to answer your question, the quarterback that could jump up and surprise, and I don't have another quarterback going after Hendon in round 2 all the way through round 4, which is this mock 4.0 is 4 rounds. And the one that I think should probably get into round 4, this quarterback class is pretty bad after you get past Hendon Hooker. Tyson Bagent is the Jordan Love of the class, where Bagent has 17,000 passing yards in college. He's got the most touchdowns all time, any level of college. He played at Shepherd in West Virginia. His dad's a 28-time arm wrestling world champion.
Shut the fuck up.
His dad, if you've never watched Travis Bagent, you need to go back and watch the World Arm Wrestling League, WAL. Travis Bagent is a wild, wild man. I interviewed him at the combine because Tyson was in medicals, and he's supposed to go. They go from medicals to the podium. What? Tyson didn't, like probably 30 guys in total over the whole week didn't make it out for interviews. Tyson didn't make it out. Travis was out there waiting for him. Travis got up on the podium and did like 10, 15 minutes. And he was LeVar, his comp LeVar Ball plus. He's awesome. So anyway, the point is more so Tyson, 17,000 passing yards in college, most touchdowns all time thrown any level of college football at Shepherd D2. He's a guy where it's the traits are there, the size is there. He's 6'3", 212. If you put him behind anybody, you could put him behind any quarterback you want that's on the later end. Kirk Cousins might be a perfect one to put him behind a true professional like a Kirk and let him just sit there. Just sit there in 2 years and just study and study and study. He's got it up here, and he's got the body for it. And he's got the arm talent that if you just let him sit for 2 years, you're going to be very happy in 2 years when you go, fuck, we need a quarterback. No, we don't. We have Tyson Bagent waiting in the wings. And it's going to be 2.5 years. And I talked about this on a show on Monday night, Dynasty Warzone. That's the quarterback you want in Dynasty. In these deep Dynasty leagues, when you got a taxi squad that maybe you can't touch for 2 years, maybe you can't touch for 3 years, you can grab Tyson Bagent for free, throw him on the taxi squad, forget he's there. In 3 years, you come back and you might have a starter.
Kirk Cousins was the 7th pick in the 4th round in 2012.
Perfect spot.
That's where Bagent should go.
Perfect spot.
Did you ask his dad why he didn't transfer after a couple of years?
He actually had the opportunity to transfer last year.
Of course.
And it was like West Virginia and Maryland. And West Virginia had JT Daniels, who transferred in from like his 17th school in the last 3 years. And Maryland had Taulia Tagovailoa, which is Tua's younger brother. So basically he was going to have to transfer out, and then he wasn't going to have the immediate starting job just like handed to him. So it was like, you have to restart, you have all this stuff. And it was like, if I just stay at Shepherd, I'm betting on myself. He ends up going to the Senior Bowl, right? He was our all Senior Bowl quarterback because the whole Senior Bowl quarterback staff sucked. And if there's one guy we were going to bet on, me and Alex were like, we're either not going to put a quarterback on our all Senior Bowl team, or we're going to put Tyson Bagent because these quarterbacks all sucked and he's got the most upside.
I remember there'd be a nice throw back of the end zone, but I wouldn't have remembered or saw who the quarterback was because they rotate through it. I'd be like, Alex, Cody, who's the quarterback on that play? Like, oh, that was Bagent.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, okay, where's he from again? I always forgot. You know, like Shepherd. I'm like, okay, all right, let me just.
Because he had the Ram helmet and he looked like he was from Colorado State out there.
It was so crazy because I thought he was from Colorado State. That helmet looks exactly like Colorado State. Shepherd's doing themselves a disservice because I was like, who is from Colorado State? Like, I just kept. It really was. It was messing with my mind. The two things that were messing with my mind at the Senior Bowl was that. So it was Bagent's helmet, and the fact that I misread Jaden Reed's name
18 times
initially as Jaden Green, and somehow it got stuck in my head, and I kept referring to him as Jaden Green the entire time. It took me like a week to unprogram that just because the first time I somehow wrote his name down wrong or something. And it's interesting how the brain programs itself, and you got to really unlearn it. I was like, it's Jaden Reed. It's not Colorado State. It's Shepherd. Okay. The wide receiver class, you would agree, is underwhelming?
To a certain point. I think
not to infinity. I mean, not the most underwhelming class, not the worst that we've ever seen, but it's pretty bad. Especially now, man. Now that I know that the NFL evaluators don't respect JSN, that makes it worse. You understand?
Yeah.
At least with JSN, I'm like, oh, we got a top 10 pick here. You're like, no way. Now I'm like, well, are we going to get a top 20 wide receiver? If we don't get a top 20 wide receiver, that's really bad. And you go after Zay Flowers, we're down at Booty, and there's our man Jaden Reed, and so on. It gets thin real fast.
I think that the class is eerily similar to 2016 in that, which right isn't a great thing.
No. Well, how is it similar?
I'm trying to find the tweet, but when you look at the class and how it's built, where the guys are going to end up falling, they're all going to be falling in the late teens and the early 20s. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of upside, but there's a lot of downside in all of them. And there's no true alpha. We all think Jackson Smith is that guy, but from the NFL aspect, Addison's thought as the guy. And I think there's a lot of guys later on that aren't getting talked about. Kayshawn's a prime example. He's going to fall into the second. Rashee Rice, Tyler Scott, Jaden Reed, Marvin Mims. Like, there's a lot of guys that aren't even in that upper conversation, where I think that the middle depth of the draft at the wide receiver position is actually what's going to carry the class. And I think you're going to get probably more hits out of that middle depth than you will out of the top 4, top 5 guys, because there's a good chance Quentin's the most volatile prospect in the class. I would say at the wide receiver position, and I think he's the one guy that can be the alpha, but I just have a lot of question marks with him. So yes, the wide receiver class does not compare to the last couple as far as the the top end strength, but I think that the middle part of the group will carry the class.
Oh God! So who's going to be Treadwell? Who the hell's Treadwell? Is that Flowers? No. Is it Hyatt? I know Hyatt's more of a field stretcher, but in terms of where he gets drafted and how hard he busts, could be Hyatt, right?
So 2016 was the first quarter. The first wide receiver taken was Corey Coleman.
Oh,
right?
No.
And then it was Will Fuller.
God. Okay, it's not that bad.
I don't think it is either. But I'm just saying,
not
like,
that bad.
When you look at the class, though, the middle tier, Sterling Shepard, Michael Thomas, Tyler Boyd, Demarcus Robinson's still there, Tyreek Hill's later on, Rashard Higgins, like, there's depth to it, and the depth is where you're going to actually find something.
And the NFL evaluators have it all wrong. They have it all wrong. It is underwhelming. A lot of guys don't deserve to be drafted in the first round. The guys that end up getting drafted in the first round could bust. Quentin Johnson could bust, man. Addison could bust. Booty could bust. All these guys could bust. I can see a lot of these guys busting. Rashee Rice, no guarantees. Josh Downs, super small.
But this is the thing, is I don't want this to be taken as like I think this tier 1 of guys is as bad as that group, because that group entirely busted. But I think that we have to be open to that being an option, because obviously Addison came in at 170. Jackson hasn't played in a year. Now I think Jackson's like the closest thing to a
Michael Thomas.
Right.
There's your Michael Thomas right there. Absolutely. And then you got Jordan Addison. That could be your Sterling Shepard. Absolutely. I see it. I see the class lining up this way. It's just that there are so many landmines in the first round. There's no way we have that many. But, yeah, a lot of these guys, especially the ones that the NFL is a lot higher on than we are.
Yeah.
Jalen Hyatt, Xavier Hutchinson. I can see this ending badly. Nathaniel Dell, there's your Corey Coleman right there.
Yeah. 2020 is also 2016 and 2020, because 2020 had a few busts in it too, right? It had Ruggs. Judy hasn't been the greatest. Rager, maybe 2020 is the better class. I thought it was these two classes are 2020 gave us a lot of prospects, period. Like, they're still playing. Gabe Davis.
It's a blend. You should do a Franken comp where it's a blend of 2016.
A Franken class?
Yeah, Franken class, 2016 and 2020.
Because there's more prospects in the 2020 class that are going to go in the top 40, and I think that's probably what we see in this class currently.
I don't want Marvin Mims to bust. I really like him. He's just turned 21 years old, but he also, like everyone else in this class, is undersized. I mean, if I had a nickel for everybody that comes in under 180, Jesus Christ, right? But at least he ran a sub 4.40. He has incredible burst. This is your field stretcher. This is your guy.
Is this your KJ Hamler?
No, he's a lot bigger than Hamler. He's at least 10 pounds heavier than Hamler. He had a super early breakout age. The guy was an early producer. He didn't rise up and take his game to the next level. Looking at the production, the catch rate declined, though the target share went up. The catch rate went down, so he was a lot less efficient last year. But the targets did double. He just didn't catch as many. So it's interesting. He spent a bunch of time on special teams every year. He was always involved in special teams. This guy's dynamic. He's athletic. He was on the field early. He's declaring early. I like him. I like him. My flag plant here, where I would debate anyone and I will fight anyone in the chat, is Mims over Hyatt. Because these guys are the same size. Mims is slightly faster. So if you envision a particular player in a particular role in the NFL, and you're trying to extrapolate it out and then also determine what this means for fantasy, what kind of fantasy production you're going to get, Mims checks all the boxes and more that Hyatt checks.
Yeah.
It's just that Mims might go in the second round and Hyatt goes in the first round. And it's going to be the draft capital that everyone's chasing improperly. Because I can tell you right now, just based on this Addison, Jackson Smith, and Jigba backwards thinking from the NFL, that this is going to be one of those years that the league gets it all wrong at wide receiver.
The thing I like about Mims is the fact that you look at those stats in 3 years, 600, 700, and 1,000, and 14%, 10%, 22% target shares. You've talked about this, but he had Spencer Rattler in 2020. He had Caleb Williams in 2021, and then he went to a left-handed quarterback in Dylan Gabriel this last year. And it's changed, and he's progressed as the years go by, as the talents came and left. And he was a guy that was talked about in the Devy circles, I remember early on. He's 20.9 years old, and he, like you just said, is just straight up getting ignored at this point.
It's crazy. It's wild. Okay, so the catchable target rate goes down, and his catch rate goes down with it. Okay? When he had Caleb Williams, his catch rate was 78%. That was just on 41 targets. You couldn't ask him to do more with that number of targets. 22 yards per reception. So a different quarterback, he goes over 1,200, 1,300 yards, and suddenly the conversation changes around him. I like him a lot. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get Mims. He's my one target in the second round in rookie drafts. Otherwise, I'm going Roschon. I'm going Tajay Spears.
I like that. I do like that. I wasn't the highest on Mims, but as the process of the last week has broken out, and I went through things and talked to you, like I more in line with Mims.
Yeah, you got to be. Now you graded all these guys with the route running.
Yeah.
Who was the highest? Who did you have as the best route runner at the combine?
Without failure, man. Every single time this guy came up, Alex looked at me. Me and Alex looked at each other, and we were just like, dude, these guys aren't even comparable to him. And Alex goes, Charlie football. He just said, Charlie fucking football. Every time it would happen, he'd just look at me. And I was like, man, this guy can't. He runs a 4.43. He's 24 years old, 175 pounds. Charlie Jones out of Purdue, who's a transfer from Iowa, from Buffalo, had 1,300 yards this year and 160 targets, 110 receptions. Charlie freaking football, 27% target share this year. Again, 4.43 speed. He broke
This
four
guy.
fours. He was running 4.39, 4.39 or 4.38 unofficially on TV. And we were there in the stadium when he was running, and they would pan right to him. Camera goes right to his face. And he was, goddamn shit. He was pissed that he ran that fast. He thought he was faster. Again, 24 years old for fantasy. It's going to be tough to bet on that, especially in Dynasty. But when you're looking at the grading, he graded out about as good as you can grade. The scale is -2 to 2, and it's 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, which two is elite. Nobody gets 1.5s hardly ever.
An old prospect, man. He's Big Ten Calvin Ridley, maybe.
And he was the only person to have perfect gauntlet. 10s both way.
This is okay. So that's why he's a big riser, riser, right? He's not top 15. Like he's not in there with, let's say, Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson also was great, right? Michael Wilson ran great routes. Michael Wilson looked good.
Yep. Well, for what Michael Wilson is, he came in 12th overall out of the 46 graded. Yes, out of the 46 graded, 12th overall for what he is. That's exactly where I expected him to kind of come out. That didn't surprise me at all because he's good. He's not great. He's going to be a middling. He's going to be a great wide receiver 3 on any football team he goes to. He's the Cedric Wilson level, the Michael Gallup level guy, and I just love Michael Wilson, dude. I can't say enough about him.
He was pretty explosive. 126.3, 76 percentile burst score, and you look at the wide receiver position, athleticism score all time. He was 70th percentile. Because he's got the size. He's 6'1", 216. He came in even heavier than he was at the Senior Bowl. So I was pleased that we still have Michael Wilson posted up. Charlie football, not quite there yet. Charlie, man, might have to. Where do you have Jones getting drafted?
I don't have a clue right now, dude. I really don't really know where to expect him to go. I put him 98 to the Browns because the Browns need some speed.
Why wasn't he at the Senior Bowl?
He opted out. He got invited. He opted out.
What is it? Did you talk to any scouts about him?
No, bro. I didn't expect shit from him. I didn't expect a fucking thing. And then we turned like he didn't really get interviewed by a ton of people. And then we go out there in the field and this guy runs a 4.39 unofficial. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And it's in Illinois, it's in Indiana, sorry. So all the Purdue people come down and they're watching. So he runs and the crowd erupts because there's like 5,000 fans in there. And then they go on field and he just tears the goddamn turf off the field. And I was like, okay, well, I guess Charlie Jones knew something we didn't know from the Senior Bowl. And Charlie Jones is going to have to be in the conversation, period.
Charlie Jones was better at self-scouting Charlie Jones than Kayshon Boutte was at self-scouting Kayshon Boutte.
Facts. If Kayshon Boutte would have just said, no, man, I'm not testing. Period. No testing. Or if he just ran the 40. If he just runs the 40 and he runs that 4.50, I do not think that we're having the conversation we are right now. Because 4.50 for how he plays is not terrible. Again, if it's 4.49, we had this conversation the other night where we were talking through rankings. If it's 4.49, nobody's talking about Kayshon Boutte. He's just where he is. He's probably wide receiver 6'7" on most lists. But because he had a 29-inch vertical, jumped like dog shit, and he put the 4.50 on there, and then he also went over 4.6 in his second run, which was the most random shit I've ever seen, everyone's negative on him. But when you go through the grading and the route running, which is something we know Kayshon's pretty good at, and he comes out 6th out of 46, I'm right back in on the booty.
Wow. So he's a great route runner. That's incredible. What do you think the NFL teams hand timed him? You think they might have hand timed it like a 4.4 or do you think they hand timed him more like the second run, like 4.60? We have no idea. We have no idea what they're hand timing him at.
I hope they hand timed him at 4.45 because if somebody hand timed him at 4.45, part of me hopes that there's a team out there that doesn't care about the jumps and they just go 40-yard dash matters. And they go 4.45 and then they watch him on the field and they go, this guy's awesome. Like that's going to make him be an early second round pick. Now, if someone's like, why did he run a 4.6? What was that about? And they go, he is not athletic. He had a 29-inch vertical. and then they like didn't really watch the on-field stuff because they bet on what their scouts said. If everybody was like that, he'd probably be a 4th or 5th round pick, but he's probably going to end up somewhere right in between there, late second, I would assume at this point. So, but Booty, it was just a really super random day for him as far as the athletic testing, then going to the on-field stuff.
Just a random day from Booty. What about Downs, man? Downs, I wish he was faster. If he was going to be, this is the problem I'm having with a lot of the wide receivers in this class. It's like, hey, okay, you're super small, okay, but man, you got to be faster than that if you're going to be that small.
Yeah,
I can maybe find one exception to a rule, but 5 or 6 exceptions. I mean, they're asking a lot, these receivers. But I like Downs, man. He was a producer and he's early declare.
Downs is nice, and the day we got there, again, we're looking. These guys are on podiums. The podiums are a foot off the ground. We're down here, so everybody's going to naturally look shorter. But when it's like consistent, the guys that are really short, you can tell. And he looked. We told you we were watching your stream with Billy. We put in the comments, he looked puny. He looked puny, and we were very worried about that. But then he goes on the field, and he's got these monstrous quads that are just popping out of his shorts. And yeah, he runs 4.48, which isn't great, but it isn't terrible. You pull up the comp list. Comps are going to be up on Player Profiler very soon, FYI, to everybody in the chat. You know who comes in right near the top? 2nd round pick, 11th overall in the 2nd round. Guy that was 95th percentile breakout age. Kentucky, 1,300 yards.
Wan'Dale Robinson.
Bingo.
Wan'Dale Robinson also has giant quads.
Bingo. So I don't think I don't think it's game over for Josh Downs.
He's a smaller, worse version of Wan'Dale Robinson. Excuse me if I can't get so over the moon for that. Right? It's just
I would say he's a little more
Addison. They all can't hit, man.
His ability to get downfield is a little more explosive than what Wan'Dale has. Wan'Dale's really good around the line of scrimmage. Josh Downs is pretty good around the line of scrimmage, but Downs excels downfield at a good rate. He also finished 4th in the grading at the route running.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
No, Downs is a very good. There's no way you can put up 1,300 plus yards as a sophomore on 150 targets. That's the reason I'm like, this Josh Downs guy. That's why we have breakout age. Mm-hmm. But the yards per reception, very low. The 40 time, the speed score, 80.2 speed score, 12th percentile. It's If he were heavier, if he were a little faster, he would have been able to maintain his ranking. But a guy like that, just based on the measurements, he comes down. He has to come down in the rankings because we weren't expecting that small and that slow, and they adjust. The rankings adjust. There were some big body wide receivers, guys that weren't big producers, guys that we weren't expecting a lot out of, but they come in and it's like, oh, this guy's 6'4", 218. Like there were some big dudes. Of the big dude archetype, who'd you like?
On the grading, Quentin came out the top for all the big dudes, which was expected because he's the premier prospect at the position. But as you scroll down, Dante Demas did pretty good on field. Jonathan Mingo, I think the comp list for him came out pretty wild.
Yeah.
Jonathan Mingo's comp list came up pretty wild.
What is it?
His best 5 comparable players: A.J. Brown.
Okay.
Number 1. We said going into the Senior Bowl, is he A.J. Brown or is he Dontario Drummond? And we walked away saying he's neither. He's Jonathan Mingo, which is right in the middle, right? But it came out A.J. Brown, Allen Lazard, Allen Robinson, LaVisca.
Mm-hmm.
You saw Mingo in person. Do you like any of those?
Tricky spot. Well, he's not an early declare, so he's not A.J. Brown.
Yep.
And he's not a great yards after the catch guy. So he's almost like Allen Lazard. Yep. If Allen Lazard were a little more durable, a little more stature. Lazard with a little more stability, stature, strength.
Yeah.
Bigger, faster, stronger Lazard. That's my analysis of Mingo, and I think that's fine, right? That's a 900-yard receiver in the NFL.
Yeah. And so Mingo finished in the upper half of this list, but really all the big guys didn't do very well on the on-field stuff. Bryce Ford Wheaton, of course, took the show. I got some comments on Instagram. I did see over at Roto Wonderworld on Instagram. They wanted me to do uncovered prospects on Bryce Ford Wheaton and A.T. Perry, so that might be coming. But Ford Wheaton, obviously, I mean, you saw on the field 6'4", 221. He looked like the DK Metcalf of the class, right? But he's not going to be drafted 64th overall like DK Metcalf was. When you look at what he did do in college, however, he had multiple quarterbacks playing with him through the last couple of years, 675 on 110 targets, 56% catch rate this last year. Not great, but it's also West Virginia. West Virginia has been a down program for a couple of years now. But you do go back to what Ford Wheaton did. I think it was like week 1. He was very impressive, and I kind of forgot about him. And then, of course, he comes to the combine, and my expectation was like, yeah, he probably run the 4.5s, maybe, he might pop. No, I was not expecting 4.38. The game was against Kansas. He went 11 for 152 and 2, and Pittsburgh 9 for 97 and 2, and then the rest of the year just kind of coasted away. So, it's there, and I think that he's going to be a little bit of a project when it comes to the grading from the route running on the field. He came in 37th out of 46. Was not great. It was pretty pitiful in the routes. The gauntlet was his better part of the game, but it was even very mid at best. As far as the route running was not great. So I think he's going to be more.
What did you expect? I mean, a guy like that, he has the 11th highest athleticism score in the Player Profiler wide receiver database. And this stretches all the way back to Terrell Owens. I mean, it's decades, and he's number 11 all time among wide receivers with a 10.9 yards per reception, 7th percentile yards per reception in his final year, and he barely crested a 50th percentile college dominator rating. He was 50th percentile across the board as a producer.
Yeah.
Right? Look at it. I mean, his college stats, so underwhelming. Would have been nice if he actually had a arm wrestler's son, prolific quarterback in his final year at West Virginia. That could have happened, right? If Badgett was his quarterback, imagine that. You would have known his name. You would have pre-scouted him if Badgett was the quarterback of West Virginia last year.
Bingo. I think we'll be talking about it in a different conversation because he would have been putting the ball downfield where it just didn't happen for him. So I think Ford Wheaton's going to be like a 5th round version of a DK, right? DK went late 2nd. Ford Wheaton, just off athleticism, is probably going to be a 4th round guy, I would assume.
Yeah,
that's usually where those.
We're looking at Jalen Strong. This is a Jalen Strong comp. I can feel it in my bones.
Oh, damn! I got fucking PTSD from Jalen Strong. Jesus Christ. Cedric Tillman.
Tell me I'm wrong about Jalen Strong comp is
100%. He still works out.
He's Dante Moncrief at best.
Oh my God.
That's good. Dante Moncrief had some games, man. Dante Moncrief, if you make the NFL and you have a multi-touchdown games, that's a win. A lot of these guys, they never do anything. They never produce a goddamn thing if they weren't drafted in top 100 picks.
I think there's a range of outcome for a Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yes.
You
right.
like that?
Yeah, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones and Moncrief. Peoples-Jones, as of right now, is Moncrief. Right?
No. I'm talking about Ford Wheaton.
I know. I'm saying if you're trying to say that Peoples-Jones is a significantly better comp for him in terms of outcomes than Moncrief, you're wrong. Peoples-Jones hasn't done anything more than Moncrief has done.
That's the point,
right? So this is what we're talking about. I mean, good luck. It's possible, right? At least because Donovan Peoples-Jones is still in the league and he's got kind of a full year with Deshaun Watson. There's a lot more hope than Moncrief, who is washed out. So give us one more wide receiver you want to talk about. One more guy.
One more guy. All right, let me pick this very meticulously. Let's go with
for rookie drafts. I hate drafting these sleepers at wide receiver. I'm almost always leaning running back in round 3 and 4, 5 in rookie drafts. But if you had to give us a sleeper,
this one's going to be kind of pukey. I'm going to go Malik Heath. Malik Heath played at Mississippi State for 4 years, transferred to Ole Miss this last year, went 971 and 5, playing the same offense as Mingo, 6'3", 215. The testing is not beautiful. Not beautiful. 64th percentile speed score, 4.64, but he's a big body clasher as you'd expect. But Alex loved him on the field, and he was in the top 20 on the on-field work. It's one of those guys that he's going to be a late run guy, but you're going to get an opportunity out of him. And I think just playing in that same offense as Mingo, I think it's a guy we just need to pay attention to.
Oh, that's interesting. The teammate score, good, but still
puke.
Terrible. That's
the big
terrible,
guys.
This class has no good sleepers in it. It's just ugh. We're trying to Bryce Ford Wheaton. We're trying to tell ourselves a story, and every comp we run into looks like Dante Moncrief at best. Okay,
how about
tight end? I love Musgrave. Musgrave's my guy. I'm not going to fall for the shiny object, the first tight end drafted. If a tight end goes top 20, top 15, I'm not going to fall for it. Not falling for Mayer. He's not athletic enough. I get there's too much Zach Ertz and Hunter Henry vibes coming off of him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's more Freiermuth. Okay, fine. But I would much rather take the second tight end drafted. It's typically a much better value. Think about Goddard, right? You go down the board. You think about Dulcich, Freiermuth himself. These guys were the second tight end off the board. They tend to be better values, especially in the tight end premium leagues. If you're going to actually invest in a rookie tight end and tight end premium, Theo made a compelling case for it on the Sonic Truth that in tight end premium, you do want to invest in them. They will have resale value. Okay, that's fine. But just please, for the love of God, don't be the first one to draft a tight end. Don't do that.
The tight end class, man, I think the expectation for this class is sky high, as it should be. It's probably the best tight end class we've had in the last decade. Dan Jeremiah has already said that. I think so as far as the depth goes. It's a position. It's a class that I think can reset the depth of fantasy at tight end. Now, when people say that and they go, "This is going to be the class that saves the tight end position," I think that's a little heavy-handed because, no, because you're going to get a bunch of like tight end threes out of this group, and you're going to get a couple guys that go into two. And I'm not sure you really have a guy that can be a true tight end. Like when I say tight end 1, tight end 2, tight end 3, I'm not talking about the general term of tight end 1 through 12 is tight end 1, because that's not how tight end works anymore. It's tight end 1 through 4 is tight end 1. Like there's only a couple guys that can do it. And there's
leverage
only a couple
makers,
guys.
yeah. It's hard to find a leverage maker in this class other than Musgrave. I think Musgrave has that kind of ceiling.
I think the testing was just good enough to put him up there.
Good enough. 88th percentile, 87th percentile. But then again, that was also Dawson Knox.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. But Musgrave, man, he was not a college producer at all. I just wish he had gave us a little more in college.
That does hurt, but I mean it's tight end, so it doesn't. Tight end's just a different animal. It's kind of like quarterback, but I love what Musgrave brings. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. He was fantastic at the Senior Bowl.
Yes,
the testing was awesome. We talk about Michael Mayer's testing. That was pretty. Actually, I was happier with what I saw from Mayer because I was expecting all along like 4.82. And he came with 4.70, which was at the bottom tier of the top 10, right? Everybody ran inside of 4.7, except for like two guys. And Mayer hit 4.70, and I was like, bingo, let's go, bingo. 4.70 is perfectly fine. I'll take it. And I think he's obviously the number one guy off the board, I think. But I think before I get to this is we saw there was a conversation last week in the middle of the combine that came out from a former quarterback in the NFL that said, if I'm the Jets at 13, I'm running the card up to the commissioner for Dalton Kincaid at 13.
What?
Yeah. And now this week I've seen multiple mocks come out with Dalton Kincaid mocked to 13. Doesn't make any sense to me. Yes, he's a great receiving tight end. He's also been injured through this entire process. We haven't been able to see any of the testing. It's all just projection right now.
Right.
And when you think about the class and you think about the last few years, the last 9 years of first-round tight ends, last year there was none. Kyle Pitts was fourth. 2020, there was none. So we've had one first-round tight end the last 3 years. The year before that, it was Hawkinson and Fant, the duo out of Iowa. So the last 4 years, it was that duo and the alpha supreme athletic tight end of the century in Kyle Pitts. I think there's a world where there's not a single tight end taken in the first round. And
or just
people
Mayer.
need to be open to this. People need to be open to this.
Just Mayer goes late first round, and that's it. That's it. They think that Dalton Kincaid's going to go first round. They think that Dalton Kincaid at 6'4", 246 is going to go first round. Move tight end. What are they going to do? Best case scenario. They're going to go best case scenario comp. Oh, this is Dallas Clark.
Yeah. I don't see it. You talk about Darnell Washington. After the testing, people are talking about Darnell Washington still playing offensive tackle because he's not a mismatch problem. That's an actual conversation that happened not only before.
So the NFL draft mocks that have 3 tight ends in the first round, it's not Washington, it's Kincaid?
It's Kincaid, Washington, Mayer, Musgrave, 3 of those guys, 4 of those guys going. That's where most mocks have.
So there is a conversation about Washington getting into the first round. That's good. I like that.
Especially with that testing. But like I just said, you know this because we were at the Senior Bowl. We were talking to Ray, and Ray's like, I've heard that there's some people that think that Washington play tight end or play offensive tackle in the NFL, right tackle. And we were like, what? Then I go to the combine, and I hear more conversations about that. Then post-workout, post-Darnell Washington burning the building down with 11-inch hands, making amazing one-handed catches, running like we expected him to, being the freak athlete that he is.
Yeah, freak.
It's like,
awesome.
where do you have Darnell Washington? Do you think he can go top 15? Look at how athletic he is. And you hear, actually, we were just talking about him playing tackle like an hour ago. And you're like, ugh, what? Like, look at the athlete that you have in front of you. This guy was 230 pounds at one point of his life, and he compared himself to Calvin Johnson. He's like, when I was imagine that frame with that athleticism, with that hand, like, how do you not think that, okay, I can put him in anywhere, and if my coaching staff, if I feel good enough about my coaching staff, they're competent enough, you can make that thing work. You can make that thing work. That thing's 6'8", that thing's 260 with 11-inch hands, and that freakish athleticism, you can't make that work. You deserve to get fired. I'm sorry. And if you think, well, the easiest way to take him would be just to not draft him and move him to tackle, you don't deserve a job in the NFL, first off. But I think more so my point is that I think we need to be more open to tight ends not having 3-4 of these guys going round 1. And when I asked where they thought Mayer would go, wouldn't be shocked if he's there at 26. Wouldn't be shocked if he's there at 27. So, yeah, like you said, maybe Mayer does go late first round. He could quite literally be the only guy that goes in round 1.
Yeah, it's a fun narrative. Oh, we're going to put multiple tight ends. And it's like, guys, actually, when you shake it out and you think who's going to pick who and what slots, needs, etc.
Yeah.
You can't, it's a fun narrative. You might want to try to jam it into your mock if you want to be wrong, but that's not the way to go. Especially when you can get guys later like Zach Kuntz. That guy's an athletic monster.
Is that how you say it?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I have no idea. All I know is I saw the numbers come in and I was like, oh shit. Look at this.
That's the thing. Like, there's freak athletes throughout the entire tight end position. There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of guys that produced. And the conversation, I think really what it comes down to is you talk about takeaways. There's so many corners. There's so many defensive linemen. There's so many offensive linemen, and there's so many quarterbacks that it's naturally going to push that position right to the brink in the first round. And I don't think you're like, yes, I think you probably will get one when it's all said and done, Mayer. But I don't think the Dalton Kincaid 13, the forcing Musgrave or forcing Washington in there, I just don't see that happening because it's the tight end position, and there's a lot more conversations happening where it's like, this is the new running back position. When you say like, yeah, it was overdrafted for years, and now the NFL is starting to understand that it shouldn't have been, never should have been. That's where tight end's going.
Zach Kuntz can't be high enough on my board because athleticism is more predictive for tight ends than any other position. Zach Kuntz has the highest athleticism score of any tight end ever. Ever. Like, oh, is he the next Chigakwankwu in this class? What? Chigakwankwu, 6'2", 240. This guy's 6'7",
Yeah.
255 with 34-inch arms. And he has 100th percentile athleticism across the board.
don't know.
It's insane.
I don't know what to do with him. That's kind of where I'm at. Like I don't know, because he's like you said, he's got the complete skill. Like this, everything's there from the size, right? Tallest tight end, 40-inch vert, but he went to Penn State for 3 years and had 26 yards. Then he goes to Old Dominion, goes for almost 700 last year. Kind of banged up this year. And it's just kind of like he was in conversations last year, but then it was just that he just did it. They test out well though. It's kind of like Musgrave though. Musgrave didn't put a lot on wax, but then you see him test out well. Kuntz test out well. I think that's how you say it. And
I think that Kuntz was railroaded at Penn State. That's my assumption. For him to go from nothing to close to 700 yards and 5 touchdowns at Old Dominion tells me he was railroaded.
So do you think that if he stays at Penn State and he's playing with Theo Johnson and Brenton Strange from this class, and he comes out this year and he tests like this, why wouldn't we just be comparing him to Mike Gesicki?
Yeah, I think Gesicki's a great comparison. He probably is. If we run the comps right now, he's probably, yes, that's it. He's Gesicki. I know. It's not like we have him ranked that high. We don't. I'm just saying I like him. I'm just saying I'm allowed to have an emotional response to this guy. But
I think they literally
when our numbers get run and he comes in at tight end 8, you're not allowed to be surprised.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know where he is.
So we're talking about the tight ends with Kuntz comparable to Gesicki. All the screen grabs during the combine were Sam Laporta to George Kittle. All the helmet scouting. Sam Laporta's the next George Kittle because he said he's comparable to George Kittle and because his athleticism is George Kittle. Not so fast. I'll just say that. And that's why we have him.
I think he's impressive, but he's not Kuntz level impressive.
Yeah, he's also not close to the Fant, the Hawkinson, or the Kittle when it comes to the on-field.
Yeah, 6'3", 245.
Yeah.
He's not even that big. He wasn't even in the upper half of the athleticism score for this class. He was 9 out of 14 tight ends.
Yep. Well, this class is pretty athletic.
And he's smaller. That's the problem with him. So, yeah, not sorry that we're not vaulting Laporta, but we might vault Kuntz more than the rest, more than consensus. All right. They came for running back talk. We're going to give it to him. Explain to the people why we have Roschon over Devon A-Chain.
Devon. I like that. Roschon Johnson is ahead of Devon A-Chain because Roschon Johnson is a completely different prospect than almost anything we have in this class, where all of the tread is on the tire. He's been in an offense with the best thing we've seen since sliced bread, Bijan Robinson. People want to say the athleticism wasn't there. We expected the athleticism to be on par with Bijan, right? Bijan runs 4.46, Roschon runs 4.58. Yes, there's a 4-pound difference in their scale. That hurt. But the 10-yard split comes in, and he's tied third with a 1.52 with Bijan and A-Chain, and in the same ballpark as Keaton Mitchell. 10-yard split means a lot when it comes to the speed. 4.58 is not it's not a death wish at the running back position.
No.
We've seen it year after year, and people want to say, oh, you were wrong on Roschon. It's like, no, we're going to stay here. Our boots are on the ground. Our flag's in the ground. Yeah, we might move him down a couple spots Your argument was that naturally you have to because same age as Charbonnet. Charbonnet did it. We've seen it, right? He's done
Yeah,
it
you
at
can't have him
UCLA.
ahead of Charbonnet. That doesn't make sense. But
But
any
that's
lower than that is foolish.
it's foolish to have him outside the top 10 like some people do.
Foolish.
But the bottom line is that Roschon is as complete of a back as you're going to find. All these guys have lots of warts, right? Charbonnet should have came out last year, didn't. Went back to school because he had to learn how to catch passes. You don't think you could have learned how to catch passes in the NFL last year when you were projected to be a late second-round pick and RB3 in that class? That's one of the things that's really sticking with me on Charbonnet. Devon Achane, very tight lower half. Yes, he's got this blitzing speed. So does Raheem Mostert. So does Jeff Wilson. I think that's a range of outcomes for him. And yeah, you're going to draw the
Chad
CJ
had him
Spillers.
as Tariq Cohen on the Sonic Truth.
No, he's no. Tariq Cohen's a human joystick. Devon Achane's not a human joystick. Devon Achane has Jamal Charles and Spiller level long speed. He does not have Tariq Cohen level agility. Size, close. Yes, I can see that 100%. And being fast, yes, I get that 100%. But when you're talking about his overall prospect, that's really why I'm kind of out on Achane. I know Ray's a big fan of Achane. He's fast, all this stuff. He was good. He was better back than Spiller was all through his time at Texas A&M. But when you're comparing him at 5'9", 188 to a guy like Roschon, who played with Bijan, he's a leader in the locker room. He's got the literal size that you want, 6', 220. You couldn't build it better. You saw the frame in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. He's 22 years old. He's not 24. Yes, he's not 20. But it's almost like one of those things where it's like, you know what you know. I know what I'm getting out of Roschon. Everyone's expecting that he's going to suck because he was behind Bijan, but that's not really how things work. We've seen that often where there's multiple backs at the same school. Look at Achane. Achane was behind Spiller last year, but Achane's better than Spiller. So I'm not saying Roschon's better than Bijan, but I do think that Roschon definitely needs to have the respect. I think we have him in a proper spot right now. I think our top 5 right now at running back, I don't think that the top 5 is going to change. I think inside the top 5, it could fluctuate a little bit from 2 to 5, but that top 5 is the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, Achane, if he was so good, he would just fully supplanted Spiller. Spiller's terrible.
Yeah.
And that actually drags Achane down.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he was behind Spiller on the depth chart. You got to beat him out in practice. If you're so good, convince the coaches that it's got to be you and not Spiller. And he never did that. That's what we ask wide receivers to do in the same situation, right? And it's like, oh, well, what about Roschon? He wasn't a starter either. Yeah, but okay. that's like telling AJ Brown that, hey man, you gotta be the receiving yards leader for Ole Miss here. And he's like, well, that's fine, but you know that guy's a freak. His name's DK Metcalf on the other side. So we could be looking at it like that, where this class is looked at in hindsight and it's like, that's the Texas running back class.
You know,
I'm looking forward to that being how this class is viewed 5 years from now.
The most recent guys that were in this exact role that Roschon has faced himself in, behind guys that maybe were first-round picks to the running back position, but they themselves have been competent and Pro Bowl level running backs. His top 2 comparables, Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs. That makes sense. Neither guy had over 200 carries in college.
I think he's better than Damian Harris. I think he's a little different than Josh Jacobs, but the Josh Jacobs comp is great. I think it's a great comp for him. And Josh Jacobs also, funny thing is about that comp is Josh Jacobs was not the lead back at Alabama. He was behind Damian Harris. So there you go. There you go. Quickly, we're going to speed up the show analysis here. I don't want to say rapid fire though. I would hesitate. I pause because I don't want it to be rapid fire. We got to dig into the running backs, but we need to have an efficient last few running backs to talk about here. First and foremost, sell us on Kendre Miller because we're higher than consensus on Kendre Miller. Check out the Dynasty rankings on Player Profiler. You can see the rookie rankings. If you want all Dynasty tools, get the Dynasty Deluxe package. If you want our rankings, which include offensive line and weekly rankings and projections and cornerback rankings, courtesy of one Cody Carpentier, then just get our player rankings. Either way, you're going to get access to our rookie rankings. Kendre Miller is high up there. Why?
Yep. Junior, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns, 20 and a half years old, 5'11", 215. Check, 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 check. Projects to be in the 4.5s. He's not going to run a 40. We're not going to see a 40 from him throughout this entire process. He had minor knee surgery earlier this spring. So you're going to get him at a value in every league, but we're going to keep him in the top 5 because if he was healthy, and I think if he ran 4.50, I would be arguing for him to be RB2. Alex Dunlap has him. Alex Dunlap has him RB2.
Over Gibbs?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. This is the Javonta of the class. This is the guy that he made Zach Evans leave Texas Christian, TCU, and go to Ole Miss. Zach Evans was a 5-star prospect, right? Zach Evans came in at 200 pounds. He's the biggest loser of the
people
combine.
hate that we have Spears over Evans.
Yeah, well, they can shut up. Zach Evans was a great Devy guy. Zach Evans has – I wrote this in multiple mocks and multiple things over the last couple of months that Zach Evans is one of the guys, and at one point I thought he was the only guy in this class that had in his range of outcomes the ability to take over Bijan as the RB1. When you hindsight look back at this class in 5 years, you could say Zach Evans is RB1 from that class, and you wouldn't that would make sense. You could be like, all right, I understand that. Not after the combine, though. Not when he came in so light, so slight a frame and 200 pounds. No. But yeah, so Kendre Miller takes Zach Evans, throws him out. He goes to Ole Miss. He goes for 1,400, scores a touchdown every single game. He's 20 and a half years old. He runs like a maniac. And yeah.
But you still agree the Roschon over Miller?
I take Roschon because I think he's a cleaner prospect overall, as far as like he's gonna check every single box there is, except for running a 4.40. Pass catching, blocking, running, special team, like every single box Roschon's gonna check it, and he's gonna be above average at it. 75th, 80th percentile, everything he does, and he's a great guy in the locker room. I don't know how Kendre is off the field. I'm assuming he's fine, but Kendre does not. He's not as clean, I guess, how I would say it. He's not as clean of a prospect as Roschon is when it comes to everything. He's a great running back, but yeah, I don't think he should be over Roschon. Yeah, I would. It's tough. Gibbs is tough. Gibbs, going that whole conversation makes it tough. But I know we're in rapid fire mode. It's a tough conversation. But like I said, I think those 5 guys all belong in that top 5.
Listen to yourself. You basically just said, yeah, our top 5 is right.
Yeah.
Those top 5 guys, they're top 5. I agree. Top 5 is top 5. Eric Gray's not in the top 5. Eric Gray ducked the testing. Does that worry you?
Yeah. Kinda. It kinda does, because I liked Eric Gray going into the Senior Bowl. He is 23 years old. He was a Devy guy. He looked good at the Senior Bowl. Definitely not great in the pass pro. And I kind of looked at him as the Rashad White of this class. And from day one of the Senior Bowl, he's taken a step back, a step back, a step back, a step back, a step back. He's like right here. He's almost out of the screen. He's almost out of the screen. He's almost gone.
Duck Gray, man. What's up? Why? How? Of all the players, I was like, we're going to see this guy test. Yep. And he jumped. He jumped well, man. He's explosive. 122.8 burst score, 73rd percentile. I was just like, there must be a glitch in the system. Where is the Eric Gray agility in 40? That's what I was hoping to see. And I think he knows that he can put up a big number, and he's trying to optimize at his pro day. He wants his conditions. And I get it. Especially with the agility drills. So much depends on great footing that they really want to be on their turf. I understand it. But to deduct a 40, I thought that was a beta move by Eric Gray. Love him, though. Great guy. Enjoyed talking to him. Beta move. Chase Brown and Evan Hull had two polar opposite Senior Bowls. Hull helped himself. Chase hurt himself. And then Chase Brown goes to the combine, and it's like he's the athlete at the position that everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
Came in heavier than we thought he would be. And super athlete, man. Wow.
Hull's grown on me. Hull's grown on me a lot. Derek Brown, I know from Fantasy Pros, talked to him quite a bit about. He loves Hull. He's got Hull way up there. I'm not quite that sold on Hull. I think he's fine. I think he's very similar to Isaiah Pacheco from last year. When it comes to being a prospect, he had more efficient seasons at Northwestern, but he's a Big Ten guy, a little undersized, super speedy, and he's too. His feet are too fast for his upper body's too. However you want to word that, his feet just don't stop going, and they move too fast for his own body. So he's a little reckless, but I think Evan Hull's definitely going to have a role in the NFL. Chase Brown, on the other hand, when the comps came out for Chase Brown, I almost wanted to X out of the page because when you're talking about football on the field, it's a little bit different. But yeah, you can imagine where the comps came out for him. From the athletic
fumbling
testing,
all over the place.
Yeah, it's weird because you didn't see him
blown up in pass pro.
You saw him absolutely.
Passes. It was a weird thing. It's hard to believe that guy could be good at the NFL. It's hard to believe based on what we saw at the Senior Bowl.
And that's the thing where like you have to take it in context, and it's like a guy that I'm gonna have to go back and study multiple times because was it a bad day? Was it a bad week?
It was a bad week.
Big for him? That's what I'm saying. Well, like there's a stage too big for him, but then the combine, like he tested out like a freak. Where it's like, all right, well, he's a gym guy, but they wouldn't invite him down the Senior Bowl if he sucked. Period. It's 1,600 yards. You don't just slip into 1,600 yards on an average football team like Illinois. So it's a guy that I'm just going to continue to look at. Do I think he's Austin Eckler? No, but he's super athlete, so you have to keep your eye on him. See where he goes in the draft.
27 catches, but he had 328 carries. They were running the offense through him. So I'm not as impressed with the 27 receptions with him as I would be otherwise. Also, 5 years at Illinois. We're going to be lower than consensus on him because we go to the Senior Bowl and we have eyes that work. So we're going to be lower. I'm just warning everybody. We're going to be lower than consensus on a Tanks Bigsby. We're going to be lower than consensus on Zach Evans, of course, and Chase Brown. Sean Tucker also, huh?
Yeah, man. Sean Tucker was I don't really know what to say about Sean Tucker. It was just a weird he's healthy. He looks like he should have tested, but he's a guy that I didn't expect would test the best for being 5'9", 207. Like he looks like a guy that might run in the 4.5s. But from his explosion on the field, you maybe say, okay, well, maybe he can dig into the 4.4s. But when he doesn't test, it's like maybe he's just not an athlete. But I don't know. I don't know what to do with Sean Tucker. That's the big thing. That's my biggest takeaway, to be honest, at the running back position. I don't know what to do with Sean Tucker. He's the one guy that's just like, I would put him in like a safe zone surrounded by bubble wrap and pillows and just watch him. What's he going to do next?
He's Sean Tucker. He's really Sean Tucker. I mean, to do nothing? At least Eric Gray jumped.
Yeah. Show me something. Do a little bit for me, huh? A little bit.
He had 36 receptions in only 12 games.
And they used him a lot downfield. And that's what I'm saying. Like, he looked good. They literally used him a lot downfield, threw the ball to him. So
you didn't hear about an injury or anything?
No. I did not.
Oh man, we'll have to monitor his pro day and we can adjust. He can bounce back. He can bounce back up very easily after his pro day. We'll monitor that. What about Kendre? He's gonna test at his pro day. He's injured. Is he's gonna be healthy enough?
That's the plan. I talked to him and I asked him what he was going to run, and he said he's not going to run because he had a hamstring injury the week before in training.
Okay.
The Pittsburgh Pro Day is 3 weeks from today. Maybe going to that.
Ooh.
And so him and Kalijah Kancey are going to be there. And I'd like to see him run what he should run, which on hand timer, he should be running 4.38 on a hand timer. But he's coming off a hamstring injury, so I don't know what we're going to get.
Israel Abanikanda is an athlete. Even if he tests poorly, it may be because of the hamstring injury. We've had adjustments before at Playerprofiler because guys tested while noticeably injured. That could be the case with him. My guess is that we're going to trust what we know about him, that he is athletic and he is intriguing, and we're going to continue to have him over a guy like Chase Brown, even though a lot of other people are going to just go ahead and vault Chase Brown because, we saw the testing at the combine.
Yeah.
We're still in on Abanikanda. Who else are you in on overall? Like, give us a truther or a sleeper, just someone super deep. Could be a rookie, doesn't have to be. That you're someone that you think we should be paying attention to. Maybe it's a defensive player that shocks the world and gets drafted in the first round no one was thinking about, or a position player for fantasy that could be a sleeper. I mean, we tried to get a sleeper out of you at the wide receiver position. That was a fail. So I'm not very confident in asking this question, but can you give us a fringy dude that is exciting, that has
pull the
some
rug.
kind of potential that's not Jalen Strong?
I'm going to pull the rug on you. I'm going to receiver. Because you didn't ask about receiver. You asked about big receivers. And there's not a lot of big receivers that can do shit in this class.
That's a great point.
6 foot, 192 pounds, 32-inch arms, 21 and a half years old. The teammate score is going to be hellaciously high. Shout out to Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Racey McMath, Terrace Marshall. He didn't do a lot at LSU in 3 years, but he transferred. Played with Casey Thompson from Texas at Nebraska. Had 111 targets this year, 33% target share. He broke a 50-year record in Louisiana for the 200-meter dash in high school, 4-time 200-meter dash champion. He ran a 4.33 98th percentile 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. Trey Palmer is going to have the number 1 dog rating in the 2023 NFL draft class. He's on the menace level of George Pickens. Trey Palmer goes in round 3. Trey Palmer, pay attention to him.